businesses are the backbone of any economy, including that of India's. Hence, there needs to be ease of opening businesses, which will facilitate people to start businesses, expand businesses, and do more business, which will lead to more production, more growth of the economy. At the same time, equally important is to have the ease of closing the business as well. Now, India has considerably improved on ease of opening the business or doing the business, but the ease of closing the business is still quite challenging. To address exactly this issue of closing the business, there was a committee that was formed known as the T.K. Viswanathan Committee. This committee was formed in 2015 to look into the ease of closing the business. It was constituted for bringing in the bankruptcy reform. So in this video, we will understand what was the objective of this committee, what recommendations did it give, how they were implemented, what are the good things about that, what are the challenges in that, how was the government response, the criticism, and what is the present relevance of this committee and its recommendation. All this and much more in this video. So let's get started with this committee. First things first, the main reason for having this committee was the key question as to why should a failed business take years to die. See, the business is already failing, and if you make it difficult for that business to close, it will continue in a negative or a loss-making manner and becoming a bigger challenge going forward. As a result of which, it's a very genuine question as to why a failed business should take years to die. Why not stop it as soon as possible, as swiftly as possible, and move forward in order to minimize the losses that are already being incurred? That was the question. As a result of which, we will have a committee, T.K. Viswanathan Committee, which will look into the details of ease of closing a business. Now, let's have an understanding what were the specific micro level questions in front of the committee. Before we move on, a special announcement with respect to the new batches that are starting at Legacy IAS Academy. So the batches, each one of them will have a maximum of only 40 aspirants, so that each one gets attention at a personal level. Now, the batches that have started is 3rd of August, 8th of August, which is starting tomorrow. This is the weekend batch that starts tomorrow. Weekend batches are specifically designed for the working professional and the college going aspirants. Regular batches are from Monday to Friday. There are other batches that are also upcoming in the month of September, October, November, as well as December. Now, once you enroll with us, there are a lot of advantages that you will have. Some of them are listed here, like the comprehensive coverage of the syllabus. The game changer is the one-on-one mentorship and doubt solving sessions, along with the regular interactions with the educators, the teachers you just saw. In addition to this, I've already mentioned that the maximum size will be of only 40 aspirants. There will be daily mains answer writing practice as well as test series for both prelims and mains to make this a one-stop solution for your UPSC journey. Now, we have a 360-degree coverage of current affairs in an integrated prelims and mains manner, which will be covered through the live classes for the entire week. In addition to this, of course, choosing the optional is one of the most important decisions for UPSC. We have all the popular optionals in UPSC, that is the psychology optional with a very concise syllabus. Then you have PSIR, which helps you completely in GS2, in governance, polity, in international relations. Then you have anthropology, probably the option with the smallest amount of syllabus, and sociology, again quite concise syllabus and helps you entirely in GS1, wherein huge number of questions are now being asked, around 8 to 9 every single year. So if you want to enroll, if you are attempting for 27-28, then these are the optional that you can choose, and the batches for them are going to start on 17th of August. If you want to enroll with us, you can simply scan the QR codes or call on this number given over here. Now let's continue with our lecture. So what was the economic problem in front of India? See, the economic problem was that there was not an ease of closing the business. There was not a single law to do that. Multiple scattered law incorporating scattered things were actually present. So we had, for example, the SICA 1985, that is Sikh Industrial Companies Act of 1985. Then various other things covered small aspects of closing the business, like the Companies Act of 1956, the Surface Act, the Recovery of Debts Act of 1993. Civil courts were also there. If you are not fitting on any of this act, then you can go to the civil court as well. The BIFR for rehabilitation of Sikh companies, as well as high courts for winding up the proceedings under any of these laws. So you can clearly see that there were multiple roads for the stressed company to go, but not a single road comprehensively addressed the issue of the Sikh company or the issue of closing the business, as a result of which there was a need to establish the committee. Right. So let us look at this requirement in detail. First, the old approach put a lot of financial distress on the company because the process was very cumbersome. Already the company is making losses, and if you give more time, the company remains like that without coming out of the business, it will face more financial distress. Then the rehabilitation, litigation and the recovery proceedings were multifaceted, which we have already seen, leading to delays, cost, etc. Then there was years and years of delay, as a result of which the company's assets also lose value. They are not functioning, the assets depreciate, they go down. So after years, when the decision comes out, you will not even be able to extract much of the value that the company and its asset has. So that was a very big problem. So what did we want to do? We wanted to have an approach which leads to reduction in the financial distress. We need to ensure that early insolvency recognition is there. You should be able to identify insolvency beforehand itself, and it should not be the case that the creditor raise a voice for insolvency. The owner, the founder should themselves be able to come up with suo motu on their own to reach out to claim that their company might be going insolvent, because businesses can fail, right? And the resolution should be in a time bound manner. It should not take years. Within a year it should be done. So we will see what the timeline for the committee will give. So viable firm resolution and non-viable firm liquidation. If there is viability of the business in the future, then it will be viable firm resolution to ensure viability and continue the business, but the firm need not necessarily be viable, so it will become a non-viable firm, in which case what will happen is viability is not there, so you will liquidate. I hope that's clear. Now, what was the macroeconomic logic of this? The macroeconomic logic was, if the insolvency process efficiency increases, it will save a lot of money, it will help with profitability, it will help with production. So that is exactly what is going to happen. There will be improved recovery, more money can be recovered because there is less delay, so asset value will not go down further, so recovery will be good. It will reduce the lending risk also. Lenders will also be willing to lend because they know they can also come out very fast. Then it will improve the credit availability, lower the cost of capital as well, and increase investment and productivity, as I have explained that the productivity will also increase because the business will swiftly end, and you can again of course start a new business as well, right? So let us look at this committee as such, the TK Viswanathan Committee. So its full name was the Bankruptcy Law Reforms Committee. It was of course chaired by Mr. TK Viswanathan. It was constituted in 2014 and it gave its final report in 2015. And what was the purpose? The purpose was to propose a modern, comprehensive insolvency and bankruptcy framework for India. Right, for the company to be able to get out of the business. That is what it was supposed to recommend. So let us see what all recommendations that it gave. First thing, we saw that the resolutions were quite scattered and not unified, so it gave a recommendation for a unified insolvency architecture. So it proposed that there should be a code, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. That code should be a comprehensive insolvency code. It will bring all the insolvency provisions under the single coherent framework. So all the multiple frameworks would be brought into one single comprehensive code. That is its recommendation. Right. So we will see whether the government agreed to this or not. And then there needs to be time bound resolution. So you need to give certain time limit within which it needs to be resolved. Of course, there might be certain buffer in certain cases where in case by case basis wherein it may be required, but it should be in a time bound manner. And there needs to be a clear exit mechanism. Clarity should be there, ambiguity should not be there, as a result of which certain solutions which can be viable, and if the company cannot last, then they're non-viable. If the company is non-viable, then liquidation should take place. So this can you can clearly see gives more clarity to the companies. Now, what's the second wave of recommendation? The 4 pillars of the new insolvency system it talked about. What are the 4 pillars? Number 1 is basically the insolvency and bankruptcy regulator. Right. So the insolvency and bankruptcy regulator, which will oversee all the happenings of insolvency procedures. Then the insolvency professionals need to be there, who will be managing the distress assets, who will facilitate the resolution, ensure procedural compliance, and protect the value of the underlying asset value during the insolvency that is happening. Then information utilities also need to be present. All the information needs to be transparent, present, so that better decisions can be made. And finally, adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority means the authority that is going to take the decisions. So you will have, for the companies, you will have the NCLT. What is NCLT? It is the National Company Law Tribunal. So the National Company Law Tribunal will decide whether the company is sick or not. When the National Company Law Tribunal takes a decision, then if one of the parties is aggrieved, is not happy with the decision, that party can then reach out to NCLAT, that is the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. So a process of appeal is also given, and finally what will happen is, after this appeal, NCLAT will give the decision. So there is a process wherein the aggrieved should also be given a chance to appeal further as well. Now, the third list of recommendations, let us have a look at this. It tried to bring in a fundamental shift, talking about who will control the distressed company. Now, what is the traditional approach? The debtor in possession, right? Debtor in possession means the person who has taken the debt is the person who is still controlling the industry, the company. Of course, because they owned it, but now they have taken the credit and they are the debtor, they are not paying back and they are still controlling. That was the traditional approach. What was the proposed approach? The proposed approach was that the creditor should be in control. Once the insolvency proceedings become, it should be the creditor, the person, the organization who has given money for that company which is not being repaid should be in control. What it said. Now the question is why? So the committee believed that creditors had stronger incentives to preserve the asset value, because it is their money that is invested. If the asset value goes down, they will be hampered the most. That is why they will have a huge incentive to restore the value, to ensure the value or preserve the value. Evaluate viability of the business, they can do it better, because the owner will say yes, it might be viable, it is viable. They might have a biasness towards viability, but the creditor can be more unbiased. Reject the unrealistic restructuring. If there is a requirement of restructuring and it is very unrealistic, it may reject that. It would be unbiased because its money is now at stake, and hence maximize the recovery. That is why it should be the creditor who should be in charge and not the debtor, is what the committee said. Let's move ahead. Let us see what was the government's response. Right. So what did the government do? The government basically constituted BLRC, right? The Insolvency committee which we talked about. Then the committee of course submitted its report in 2015 as we have seen. So the government basically accepted the recommendation, and to implement the recommendation the government came up with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code bill, and it was introduced in the parliament in 2016. The parliament passed the bill and the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code was implemented in phases. So yes, the government accepted the recommendation and implemented it and came up with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code bill, which was passed, becoming the IBC Act or the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Act. Now, what did the IBC consolidate? The multiple laws, forums, etc. that were there, they were all unified, and all of these processes, procedures, organization were clubbed comprehensively into the IBC, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. What was the institutional architecture? It will be first the IBC, which is regulated by IBBI. If there are certain cases, it will go to the NCLT. The aggrieved can appeal in the NCLAT, that is the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. And of course, it will consist of insolvency professionals, informations, and the committee of creditors will be there. Who are this? What is this committee of creditors? Committee consisting of the creditors who have basically given the credit for the company. Now let us look at what was the impact of this on India. Of course, a lot of positive impacts did happen. So the question is, did IBC change India's insolvency culture? Yes, to an extent it did. It led to a time-bound resolution because time was given 180 days plus 90 days additional on case-by-case basis if it was needed. So within a year, in fact in 270 days, right, almost 3/4 of a year, you should resolve it. Improved creditor confidence. The creditor also now had confidence because there is a process which can safeguard their investment and recover their money if something goes bad or something goes wrong. Better credit discipline was also there because of this. Then you have shift towards resolution. The objective moved towards resolving the issue rather than simply recovering the money. Simply by selling the asset, you don't recover much of the money. So first try to resolve if there is any issue, and then we can look at the recovery later on. Banking sector impact. It also became an important tool for addressing the non-performing assets that are there with the banks. It will lead to more recovery of the non-performing assets. That is the idea over here. Right. Next, the exit mechanism. It created a more credible exit mechanism which the people, even the founder of the company can suo moto basically take that decision. Previously, that option was as such not available. However, there are certain criticism and debate. What are the criticism and debate? Certain good things are there. What are these good things? Faster resolution. Faster resolution means now it is a time-bound manner resolution, as a result of which it is getting faster done and the recovery is also more prominent. Stronger creditor rights. The creditor are getting rights because they are going to get the control of the company, sick company. Better credit culture and institutional specialization because the specialist professionals are going to do this process. However, there are concerns or criticism. What are the criticisms? The delays still continue. Remember, I told that 270 days are required, but the companies or the entire process, IBC process, is taking at times 400, 500 or even 600 plus days. So multiple years are being taken. Judicial capacity is still a constraint because the matter is going to the court at the end of the day. They are still piled with other cases, so that is still a concern. Haircuts. Haircuts means the recovery. The recovery would be less, so the creditors will have to take a haircut. They were supposed to recover, let's say 100 units, but will recover only 60 units. So 40 units is the haircut that they are required to take. So haircuts are also quite massive. Liquidation concerns because some firms may enter liquidation rather than achieving successful resolution. No resolution, so they may have to sell their assets to recover, and operational challenges are there with respect to the capacity, valuation disputes, so on and so forth. Now, what is the present day relevance? Right, so present day relevance is still there because this IBC is at least better than what it was previously. However, it needs to be made more swift. Earlier philosophy was save the company at any cost. Now it is save the viable business. If it is non-viable, then liquidate it and move ahead. Larger economic lesson is that financial stability is very important, right? Efficient resolution of insolvency is essential for what? For financial stability in the country, credit discipline, investment confidence, capital reallocation, as well as economic growth, so that your huge capital is not stuck at one place and you can move ahead. That is the idea. Now, this is absolutely important for your GS3. For banking reforms, NPAs are also linked to it. Financial sector reforms, ease of doing business, both entry and exit, and the credit availability, investment, as well as capital formation. So, questions with respect to mains can be asked from this. So that's about it in today's committee. Stay tuned to Legacy IAS Academy's YouTube channel for more such videos in this series of Committee of Indian Economy. Thank you.